topics for today that we're going to go through are pretty simple. I'm going to focus on two really important, valuable components of the platform. And those are the chat interface and a couple of the like AI writing tools. So I'm going to skip into a document that I already have written. Right, so we've gone through the outlining process, we've gone through the initial generation process, and we're going to get into actual writing. Because I don't see any. Not sure, James. Yeah, I'm not sure, James. I think you can. I don't know if you have access or if you're able to ask audio questions. But you can definitely ask them here. Excuse me. Allergies. Okay, so I'm going to jump into a document here. What I want to do is show some capabilities and some best practices that I like to use when I'm using the different AI tools in the actual writing interface. And there are some new capabilities that we just came out with that I also want to show. So number one, right, the kind of easiest tools that we have are here on the quick selection. Haven't seen them before, right? Lengthen text, take a section of content, hit lengthen text, and I'll turn a little bit of content into a large amount of content. You can shorten text, trying to get under page count. You can select a fairly large section of content, hit shorten text, and it will crunch that content down for you. Fixing grammar is what it says, right? It's fixing your grammar and grammar, speech, spelling errors in cases. Improving content is a nice way of saying kind of de-jargoning. So really dense content. Maybe your engineers wrote them, but it can kind of improve some of that content as you're writing. And then bulletize. So if you have a wall of text, right? I've done this by hand in the past. You've got a wall of text and you want to turn that into bullet points so it can be more readable. That's a useful tool. And then enhanced readability, which is really a nice way of saying one voice. So these are the quick bar tools. You also have here on the quick bar an actual AI. So if you want to take a piece of content like this and get a quick AI instruction, I can say something like, a management approach, something like that, right? I can do that immediately. So I don't necessarily have to go all the way over to Rogue Chat, right? Over to the chat interface to do that AI instruction. So you can do that directly. And now you'll see here where we're looking, I've given the AI an instruction. So I've used something off that quick bar. So what it's done here is it's highlighted that section of content. It's shown me this comment, and really kind of a tracking tool. So it's tracking that I have given the AI an instruction to generate this piece of content. Further down the line, this will, future iterations, this will actually show you in real time the different content that you have generated using the chat versus what you've written by hand. So you can kind of track what's AI generated, what's manually generated. But for right now, it's kind of a place marker for what the AI is currently working on, right? So you can kind of keep track of where you are in place. Excuse me. So that is the inline AI chat. This will take generate. We've built in some more robust AI models, and they just take a little bit longer to create. So you can see here, this is still highlighted because the AI is still currently working on the task that I just gave it, which is to write a management section off of this section of content. Relatively robust. So it's going to work on that for just a minute, but it's going to show me, it's sort of saving in my place where I've written that content. Super valuable. Okay, so that's working. obviously Rogue Chat is another like sort of full tool set unto itself. The way that I like to think about this is sort of Rogue Chat is what I use primarily for large sections of content. Okay, so I need to write an entire block of content that isn't currently in my document. It's it needs to kind of be built out organically. And so I like to use Rogue Chat for that purpose. Whereas if I want to just work off of a piece of content that's the already in the writing interface, like it's already a piece of content that's here, I like to use the quick tools for that. And there's a lot of effectiveness and efficiency you can gain by kind of using the two tools in concert to get to kind of get through the writing process. I think somebody just raised their hand. If you have a question, you can just throw it in the Q&A and I'll answer those as well. Okay, so for chat, I want to show you real quick that I can do a couple of different things in chat. So in here, let's pick a section of content. So here I've picked a section of content. I'm not going to deal with these right now because I want to show you how we can use them together in a minute. I'm going to take a relatively short bit of content, so a sentence, okay? And I'm going to use, and so when I select that content, you see it shows over here. Anything that's showing up here is passed as context. So the AI over here, this chat, is currently focused on this content right here. Right? I have deep dive on, which means that the deep dive is on. It is indexing my data shelf. Right? It is going to look at my data shelf for content that is relevant to the context, my context that I've given it, and also the instruction I give. So I want to say, maybe write me a engineering approach to taking. Now, note, I'm not writing some crazy long prompt, right? I'm not engineering some crazy prompt to get this to work. I'm not telling it, hey, you're writing a proposal about X, Y, and Z, and I need you to talk about real-time dashboards, right? I've passed it that context by selecting that bit of text, right? That passed over here. I gave it a very simple plain language instruction, just like I would tell someone who is writing with me, give it that instruction. I don't have to make some crazy prompt. And you'll see down here, as you're writing, you can see which documents it's indexing when it's writing, okay? So you can kind of keep track of which documents it's pulling off of your shelf that are relevant to those, the instruction you've given it and the content you want it to, instruction you've given. So as I'm sure you all know, we kind of don't like copy paste processes here. So instead of copy and pasting, I'm just going to come in here under the, actually select this bullet point that I just wrote content for. I can hit copy to editor. And so now I have a relatively decent outline for that specific task, right? I said, hey, write me a technical approach for this content. And it provided me with this outline. Now you'll notice it gave me a pretty decent outline, right? And this is fairly common. Look, I got a question in the chat. Let me see. Eric White, when do you not use deep dive? That's actually a great question, Eric. So I personally like to not use deep dive in ideation process. That's where I find it the most useful. So maybe I'm not on the services side of things, maybe I'm not an expert in like the program management body of knowledge. Maybe I've written about program management processes and program management approaches in the past. Maybe I don't necessarily want to index those past approaches for my current writing task. Maybe I want a more sort of expansive approach to the services proposal or a services approach. So I would turn off deep dive mode and I'll use the chat sort of like an ideation assistant in addressing those things. When it comes to more technical things, so if I'm writing a software development or a hardware software development topic, again, I don't necessarily want to index off of things I've done in the past because I'm writing about a new idea, a new concept, a new design for the future. I'll turn off deep dive and use the chat to come up with brand new approaches to particularly if there are things that are somewhat similar to what I'm writing to right now that I really don't want incorporated into my current approach. But great question. So let me jump back in here. So you'll see, like, the chat did a pretty good job, and I could have told it, like, give me an approach and put it in paragraph format, right? I could tell it, again, not crazy prompt engineering, but just giving it instructions like write me a paragraph about this. But what I like is I've come here and I have this neat structure, and I can come in here and I can enhance this structure. I can say, for requirements gathering and analysis, I can say document folder requirements interface Jira, something like that. So I can come in here and enhance this. And then what I like to do is I can take these and then I can use the AI tools to then turn around and lengthen that content, right? So I've used the chat to create this whole new section of content, whole new structure in my proposal document, right? I've built out this whole new section. And then from there, I can use the AI tools to then make targeted enhancements. So I can turn, 4 bullet point sentences into 4 paragraphs of content. And again, the AI that is writing for me there is using the entire document as context for building out that content. Okay, and so that is, so you can use that back and forth, right? I can start with my outline. I can come in here. What I often like to do is I will pick sections for which I want assistance from my technical staff. I'll ask my technical staff for maybe bullet points on how they would approach a particular problem set. I will put those bullet points in here, right? I'll put that structure in there, and then I'll use the chat to help me build out structure for my proposal based off of those. So I've asked my technical staff for, just some top line information. I use the chat to turn that top line information into proposal structure, and then I'll use the targeted AI tools to turn that structure into robust content. So I don't have to go back to the chat all the time. I'm really using the chat for the large bulk content, or like I said earlier for Eric, the more sort of ideation or original kind of expansion process. I do want to show you a couple of interesting things we have in here. So this is a new kind of tool that we recently built in, and that's the suggested prompts. So the prompts get generated. So when as I selected this content, these prompts are contextually relevant to what I have selected here, right? So I can select different sections of content, and if I'm, maybe I don't necessarily know how to interact with the AI, maybe I want some assistance. Maybe it's midnight, I'm a little burnt out, and I want some ideas of how I can continue writing with the assistance of the AI. These chats are semantically, or these prompts are semantically generated on the fly based off of what you're working with. So it takes that content in as context and provides you with potential instructions to give to the AI so that you can continue building out your proposal content. So that's a new thing, kind of a cool little feature that we just added, I think, last week. So we're gonna. Is there an option to condense text as there is to lengthen text? Yeah, great question, Daniel. So that's right there on the toolbar. So this is the lengthen text. If I want to, if I want to do the opposite, then this box is what I would hit. So I can select content like this, and I'll hit shorten text, and it'll take that task and crunch that content down. So it'll take usually a full paragraph, it'll cut it down to a couple of sentences max. If I take a full page, it will usually crunch it down to a paragraph or two. Can you show us how to take RFP documents and turn it into a draft response? Oh, James. Yeah, let me, might actually be better to book a separate demo for that. But if we have time towards the end of this, I'll jump in. Okay, so another thing I want to show you is the different things you can do with chat. So I'm going to take something like our compliance strategy include. I'm going to specify what I actually want it to do. So I'm going to say, give me a milestone table for 12 and deploy this. Boom. Okay. And so I've kind of, again, not crazy prompt engineering, right? I'm not doing some like chain of thought process here. I'm just saying like, hey, I want a table. I want 12 months, right? I want you to tell me how I would implement this strategy, right? And it will break that down, right? So it's doing multiple things at once while it's doing its generation, and it's putting into the format that I asked for. Great. Okay, Carl, while it's generating, what about page size prompts? I.e., the section is only allowed a page when creating content or taking a page down to specific size, remaining compliant to shall statements. So for like, you know, hey, you have 10 pages for this particular volume. We're actually in the process of writing. I don't want to unveil features as they're coming, but we have a feature coming out for that here shortly that will enable you to limit content generation and page count based off of what section M is specified. Similar to the way if you've seen the outline generator, where you can specify when you go into generation how much content you wanted to generate. We'll have some controls like that for maintaining and addressing compliance while you're writing. You don't have to do a lot of that cut down process back end. Okay, so I generated this matrix here, and I can just drop that again into the edit. So here's my milestone. To respond to this compliance strategy, no, I didn't give enough time. Okay, so you can obviously make tables. We are building out capacity to do additional tasks with the chat bot in the future. So that's kind of building out additional things. I want to show, obviously, how you can use the chat with specific documents. So if I know of something on my data shelf that is relevant, right? So I've written about this before in the past. I want to pull up one of those documents now again in the future. I can look up maybe so I can pull up an old document that I've written that I know has relevant content in it for the topic, the specific thing I'm writing to. So I can select that content, right? This is context. And then, so you can see it's passed over here. And then I can specifically reference that document. Say, you know, write and so it's going to index that specific document and pull the content out. And so you can see here where it's pulled that specific content. and referenced related content so that it can write that response with that specific structure. So that's how you reference specific documents. Let's see. Majority of prompt. That's most. I don't want to make this longer than it has to be. I really just wanted to show everybody how to really get the most out of the different tools in here. Like I said, there's the different quick bar tools where you can just select content and say, hey, expand text, content, condense text. You can also, anything you're doing over here, you can still give a specific instruction. So these instructions are fairly straightforward, right? I don't want to say they're coarse, but if I want to be more specific about what I want done, right? So I'm going to take, maybe I'll take this installation process section. And maybe I'll say, expand this content, make it technically detailed, and incorporate right? And so I can be a little bit more specific. Whereas if I just select content and hit the quick button, it's going to use the context of just the content I have selected. Whereas, so, select a sentence, hit expand, and it will expand that sentence based off the context of what's already in writing. But I'm not giving it any additional instructions, right? I'm not giving it additional guidance. But if I select that content and come over here to the chat window and give it that additional instruction, give it that additional guidance, it can be much more tailored to what I want it to actually do. So these quick bar tools are a little more coarse, right? They're kind of just straight instructions. Whereas if I do it sort of more manually over in the chat, then then I can add instructions. Let's see. When we create a shell, can we create a size for each subsection? Yes. There are a list of topics on the left of the screen derived from the outline document in the middle, or are they really just the same being presented? Oh, so over here, Ellis, if that's what you're talking about, this is really just your table of contents. So like this is your top of the table. And so every time I add in a section, it adds to my table of content. So it maintains that structure. And thank you all for the time and for joining us. That's all I have for today. Thank you.